Is this the best comic story of the last 10 years? It's too early to make a statement that definitive, but Jonathan Hickman's House of X Powers of 10 story feels like it's headed in that direction. So after 2 consecutive issues of Powers of 10, House of X is back with another fantastic story. Powers of 10 number 3 was exceptionally exciting and tense and featured a couple of oh my god moments. House of X number 3 builds on the momentum of its predecessor, this time in Moira X's 10th lifetime. Jonathan Hickman, Pepe Larraz, and Marte Garcia continue breaking the mold and, most importantly, making X-Men cool again. This is as exciting as comics have been since DC were pumping out mass volumes of high-quality content during the early days of Rebirth. In many ways, Hickman's direction feels like X-Men Rebirth. The deeper we dive into Hickman's incredible reintroduction to X-Men, the more convinced I've become Jonathan Hickman is the future of Marvel Comics. If he's not named editor-in-chief of Marvel Comics within 3 years, something will have gone terribly wrong. Nobody has shown this level of understanding or thoughtfulness at Marvel in a very long time. So yeah, this book receives my highest recommendation for many reasons. Hickman's X-Men is flat out the best comic story the industry has to offer today. Before I get into all the glorious details of House of X number 3, I humbly ask if this is your first time viewing the channel, or if you're a regular and haven't yet, please consider subscribing. My subscriber count lets other comic book fans know Thinking Critical YouTube is a go-to source for comic book reviews, news, discussion, and in-depth analysis. If you're enjoying the channel's content, please subscribe. Now, on to the good stuff. Let's break down all the details in my House of X comic book review. I've already made myself very clear in the 2 previous House of X reviews. Pepe Larraz's art is really good. He has a fantastic feel for the setting and characters Hickman creates. The illustrations of Larraz, along with color artist Marte Garcia, are critical components in making House of X the hottest comic in the industry. And I gotta say, this panel featuring Sabretooth is absolutely metal. He looks extremely imposing, could give a damn, and you definitely get the sense that these massive shackles aren't near enough to keep Victor Creed subdued. I love the art in House of X. I rate it 4.5 out of 5. This week's reference materials are once again excellent. The best story aid is the Sentinel to Nimrod progression information. I really dig how Hickman's exploring 2 different evolutions of man. The mutants represent the natural evolution of man to a higher stage of being. Machines represent the human desire to halt their own demise and our unnatural evolution. They are man's creation, man's refusal to accept mutant evolution and fight it with their own machine creations, ultimately leading to the destruction of everything. This graph lays out the evolution from Sentinel to Nimrod, which represents machines' ascendancy to the most powerful force on Earth. Nimrod can't come to be in a vacuum. Several milestones must be reached first. A fully operational mother mold represents a point of no return. If the mother mold becomes operational, Nimrod becomes inevitable, making the events in this comic hold a tremendous amount of weight. The last vestiges of mutants in Moira X's 9th life did their part. They discovered Nimrod's creation. Now it's up to Cyclops and his team to do their part. The story begins with Scott having one last conversation with Charles and Eric before Cyclops and his team embark on a mission they can't fail. Hickman does masterful work elevating the importance of the events about to unfold. Thus far, Cyclops has shown to be an absolute boss. He confronted the Fantastic Four and didn't have a worry in the world. Charles can hear the fear in Scott's mind. Scott responds very matter-of-factly, "Is it wrong that I'm afraid? That I have doubts?" Charles responds, "Of course not. You've always been that way. What matters is that you overcome it, and you do so for your family. Fighting to save your family is the most relatable motivation in the world." I really dig this dialogue, but it gets even better when Magneto finishes. "For the righteous can never truly die, they live on. Transformed into something immortal by their mighty works, for you to die, you have to be forgotten." This is extremely powerful. Legends can never die because tales of their bravery and sacrifice stand the test of time. Magneto and Charles are fully aware Cyclops and his team may never return. This interaction adds an incredible amount of burden to Scott and the events following it. As Scott and his team, including Jean Grey, Wolverine, Angel, and Nightcrawler, head off, they have a very meaningful debate. Jean wants to know about the human crew aboard the Mother Mold. Cyclops states they are to stop the Mother Mold no matter what, but keep casualties to a minimum. These sentiments feel like wishful thinking. Logan chimes in with a harsh dose of reality. Innocent civilians don't build machines to exterminate a species. This is probably my favorite scene in the entire story. It rings very true to me. Before heading to Afghanistan, my team and I trained together for several months. These kinds of moral debates absolutely happen and are very necessary. Heading to a hostile environment is extremely uncomfortable and emotionally taxing. At least it was for me. Everyone handles it differently and ultimately arrive in the battle space with their own perspective. But it's exceedingly important to understand what your teammates are feeling and thinking. They're literally all you've got on the battlefield. Kudos to Hickman for a job well done with a short scene that felt important and true to life. So the earlier image of Sabretooth is from a side story involving his confinement at Project Achilles, a superhuman super maximum security prison. I do have an issue with this part of the story that I'll cover during the plot, but it features a standout character moment for Emma Frost, aka White Queen. Agent Tolliver has a pistol aimed right at her face. Emma is not the least bit intimidated. She says, "Normally, I dominate that little mind of yours and make you stick that gun where your last boyfriend left you." Later adding, "So why don't you pretend that some larger American purpose is being served here today, and I'll pretend like you could have stopped me." This is exceptionally condescending and arrogant, perfectly fitting the White Queen's personality. This week's reference material also breaks down the human to Omega Sentinel process, and we get a deeper introduction to Crema, aka the Omega Sentinel. I really hope Hickman covers the reason Crema was chosen to become Omega Sentinel, like in a flashback or during the X-Zero timeline. I have a feeling it's really important. Crema does get a pretty cool moment that demonstrates her strategic value. During the X-Men's assault on Orchis, she says, "That's disappointing." When asked what, she replies, "It's a very linear plan for a non-linear flow." It shows a good understanding of the X-Men as an adversary and higher level of military thinking. Crema doesn't really shine yet, but this feels like groundwork for something major in the future. Jonathan Hickman does an amazing job building stakes through perfect character moments in this comic. These are the kind of details that separate good stories from all-time great stories. I rate his characterization in House of X a perfect 5 out of 5. It literally gets no better than this. Now I'm going to cover the plot as best I can without giving away too many spoilers. After his meeting with Charles and Eric, Scott meets with his team to tell them about their fateful mission to destroy the Mother Mold. To up the stakes, he informs the team they won't be taking any Krakoa portal seeds with them. If they fail, there is no get-out-of-jail-free card. The team objects, but Scott explains it's too dangerous risking Orchis scientists acquiring Krakoan seeds. The fate of the X-Men and mutantkind are in their hands alone. The story then moves to the Project Achilles Super Maximum Prison trial of Sabretooth. The White Queen arrives and reveals that due to an agreement with the State Department, all mutants, natural born or otherwise, now enjoy diplomatic immunity as citizens of Krakoa. This sequence is very well executed, but was frustrating because the stakes are so high for Cyclops and his team's mission. I really wish Hickman could have found another place to execute this particular act. On the Mother Mold, the security team identifies Cyclops and his team's ship incoming. The Mother Mold isn't operational, so the defenses they do have aren't adequate enough to stop the incoming attack. There are external security measures available, but Cyclops and the X-Men plan to execute this mission when they are too far away and the Mother Mold is vulnerable for a short time frame. Nightcrawler uses his teleportation ability to perform a short reconnaissance mission, discovering the presence of the Omega Sentinel. Wolverine says, "We'll deal with that when we have to. First things first." The team then dock and prepare to board the machine that will ultimately destroy all mutants when it comes online. This story contains a fantastic cliffhanger. I honestly might explode if next week's House of X number 4 doesn't pick up where this comic leaves off. The story in this week's issue is an extremely engaging and once again tension-filled ride. I do have a small issue with the inclusion of the Project Achilles material. It honestly feels out of place in an issue this important. Other than that, Hickman's plot in House of X number 3 is everything I could ask for. I rate it 4.5 out of 5. Each and every week, Jonathan Hickman and his creative team raised the bar. Last week's Powers of 10 story felt exceptionally important. This week's House of X story feels even more so. I'm honestly not sure how Hickman will top himself next week, but at this point, I'm certain he will. Pepe Larraz and Marte Garcia's visuals continue elevating Jonathan Hickman's story. This level of synergy is what all creative teams should strive for. Jonathan Hickman's characterization, especially the lead up to the assault on the Mother Mold, really stand out this week. The sum of the parts greatly outweigh my one minor complaint about the story. I rate House of X number 3 5 out of 5. This is one of the best modern comic stories I've ever read. I've always been impressed with Jonathan Hickman's ability to structure and execute stories at enormous scale. I don't really recall many moments from his past work that connected with me on an emotional level. He's certainly done just that with these past 2 comics. Is this the best comic story of the last 10 years? It's too early to make a statement that definitive, but Jonathan Hickman's House of X Powers of 10 story feels like it's headed in that direction. Jonathan Hickman and his strategic vision might be just what breaks the mold and makes Marvel Comics great again. I truly hope this is just the beginning of a new dawn at the House of Ideas. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. I would appreciate it very much. It helps us attract more views for the channel. Subscribe for future commentary, comic book news, and reviews. And don't forget to ring the bell for notifications. If you want to talk comics, movies, and much, much more, you can follow me on Twitter at Wes_from_TC. With that, Salamat Po, and I'm out.